Before the stage, before the spotlight, there was a girl searching for somewhere to belong. This is not a history of fame. This is a history of becoming.
This is the history of Courtney Love. Wanna know more about it? Stay on the video. Courtney Michelle Harrison was born on July 9, 1964, in San Francisco, California. Even her name carried meaning, inspired by a character from a controversial 1950s novel, symbolizing independence and rebellion. Her parents came from very different worlds. Her mother, Lena Carroll, was a psychotherapist. Her father, Hank Harrison, worked as a publisher and briefly managed the Grateful Dead. The counterculture was in her DNA, but childhood for Courtney was far from stable. After her parents' divorce in 1970, her life quickly turned turbulent. She spent time in communes, which she later described as a chaotic places full of eccentric characters. She remembered it as a world with no rules, no dresses, no structure, just free spirit living. From a young age, Courtney struggled socially. She saw therapists before she even entered grade school. At 9 years old, a psychologist noted traits of autism, including what's called tactile defensiveness, a heightened sensitivity to touch. Courtney herself later explained it. When I talk about being introverted, I was diagnosed autistic. At an early age, I would not speak. Then I simply boomed. By her early teens, the instability had only grown. She moved across Oregon, New Zealand, and back again. At 14, she was arrested for shoplifting and sent to juvenile detention, where she first discovered the music that would shape her identity. Artists like Patti Smith, The Runaways, and The Pretenders. By 16, she was legally emancipated, cutting ties with her mother and receiving a small trust fund. With freedom came uncertainty, but also the first real spark of the independent, chaotic force she was destined to become. At 16, newly emancipated, Courtney was free, but also restless. She spent 2 months in Japan working as a dancer to survive, before being deported when her passport was confiscated. Back in Portland, she picked up odd jobs, even working at a famous local strip club called Mary's Club. To keep her identity hidden, she started calling herself Love. The name stuck and would soon become her legacy. Courtney never quite fit into traditional spaces. She studied philosophy and English at Portland State University, but her real education came elsewhere. She found community in gay clubs where drag queens and performers taught her the social skills she said she lacked growing up. It was here that she began to understand performance, not just as entertainment, but as survival. By the mid 1980s, Courtney's wanderlust pulled her to Liverpool, England. The city was alive with post punk energy, and she found herself absorbed in its underground scene. She connected with musicians like Ian McCulloch of Echo and the Beanie Men, and Gillian Cope, who became both mentor and boyfriend. Years later, Courtney would say, before Liverpool, my life doesn't count. Ian McCulloch and Gillian Cope taught me a great deal. Liverpool had been a great school to become a rock star. The time in Liverpool shaped her vision. It gave her confidence, contacts, and above all, the conviction that she could make her own mark in music. But to do that, she'd need to head back to the United States armed with experience and determination. By the late 1980s, Courtney had a plan. She moved to Los Angeles with one clear goal to start her own band. Teaching herself guitar, she posted an ad in a local music zine that read, I want to start a band. My influences are Big Black, Sonic Youth, and Fleetwood Mac. The mix of raw noise, art punk, and melodic pop was her manifesto. In 1989, she found her allies guitarist Eric Erlandson, bassist Lisa Roberts, and drummer Caroline Rue. Together, they formed a whole. The band's name came from two sources. A line from Euripides' tragedy Medea about a wound that pierces the soul, and something her mother once told her you can't go through life with a hole inside you. For Courtney, the word was both personal and poetic. In 1991, Hole released the debut album, Pretty on the Inside, produced by Don Fleming and King Gordon of Sonic Youth. It was abrasive, chaotic, and fearless. The record shocked some listeners with its raw honesty, but critics praised it as confrontational and authentic. The single Teenage Horror even reached number one in the UK indie charts. For the first time, Courtney Love wasn't just a survival, a traveler, or a name on the underground. She was the leader of a band that demanded to be heard. Before fame, before chaos, there was creation, and creation never ends. Subscribe, stay close. Next chapter's already humming in the background.